Hi, I'm Dr. Kurt Grobe. I'm the System Medical Director of Employee and Occupational Medicine for MUSC. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about DOT exams in the MUSC system. We're going to be doing them in the outpatient clinics for various clients, and I just want to share a little bit of tidbits and some information that I've learned along the way. Now, the purpose of the exams is to ensure the safety of the public when it comes to commercial drivers and truck drivers. There's obvious reasons why we want to make sure that commercial drivers are safe. And the big question is, do the drivers meet medical standards to operate a commercial vehicle as established by the FMCSA? Now, you've taken the course, and you're saying to me, I've taken the course, I've passed the exam. Well, congratulations. That's good, really, really good. This presentation is to ensure the minimum MUSC documentation quality, and we're going to try to establish some standards for DOT exam documentation. You say, but why? Why have to do that? I've already passed the course. I'm certified to get the exam done. Your patient's driving a 30,000 pound plus vehicle down the road at 55 miles an hour. If they have an accident and there is loss of life, I guarantee you will be subpoenaed. I guarantee it as the medical examiner. So the document, your FMCA, your annual, your DOT exam, is the written documentation that will protect you and the driver in that court case. And a lot of times drivers say, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this? Well, I tell my drivers, this protects you. So if there's ever an accident, this is protection for everyone, the company, the driver, and for you. Now, when we do these exams, first, please, just let's get a copy of the driver's license and scan it into the chart, the front and the back. This ensures that we have the license, we can refer back to it, and please scan it into the chart. Then we can write in the field on the exam, driver ID verified by driver's license. So we'll have a copy of that. It sounds simple, but it's always nice to have a copy of the driver's license for our reference. Second, when we take a look at the personal information, the driver health history is on the page 1. Please make sure every one of these fields is filled in. The driver's going to answer every question in the top box. For surgeries, yes or no, or not sure, that must be answered. Also, please, if you ensure that when they fill this out, that there is a date when they had the surgery, what it was, and if it's healed. For example, gallbladder removed 1988, resolved with no issues. It's important to determine that because we need to know, will this surgery affect driving? And if they say they've had an amputation or a finger removed or an arm removed or a foot removed, if it's going to affect driving, or an eye removed for that matter, we absolutely want to make sure that we document it. If one of these drivers comes in and is approved for a two-year card, and they've got no arms and no legs, and their name's Bob, I know it's terrible. You're going to look really, really bad. So for medications, they're asking about medications. Yes, no, or not sure must be answered. And please ensure there's a date when it was prescribed, how often it was taken, and which provider prescribed it. Amlodipine, 10 milligrams daily, prescribed by primary care provider. It's also to determine if the driver is taking medications that may impair the driving, specifically sedation. With a lot of these medications, sedation is very important to us. If there's questionable medications, there's the driver form, MCSA 9754. If there's any medications that are questionable, that may cause sedation, Vistaril, let's say, or Percocet, or amlodipine, maybe some gabapentin in there, have the driver filled out that form. What that does, that covers you. And the driver goes back to the person who prescribed it, and that person justifies why it's there. You don't want to say to somebody who has, 100 milligrams of Percocet today, oh, yeah, they're fine. If there's an accident, it's going to come back to you, and it's always nice to have that MCSA 9754, so you can then say, nope, I had the driver fill this out. Does that need to be done every year? Yes, Ideally, you have them fill out, if there's an annual renewal or 2-year renewal, have them come back with that form filled out for those medications every time they come to see you. Now, driver health history. The top in red can be filled out by us, by the provider. Each question must be answered by the driver. Each one of these little bubbles needs to be filled in yes, no, or not sure. The answers in this section should match, I'm saying match, the medications that are reported prior. Other health conditions, this must be answered as well. Yes, no, not sure must be answered. If you're no or not sure, you can write NA in the field for other health conditions. Not applicable if it's a no. Just to make sure everything's filled out. For commenting further, they're going to ask you to comment further in the lowest box. Yes, no, or not sure must be answered. You need to answer every bubble on this page must be answered. And the box should approximately match the medical conditions that they're taking for on the first page. So in other words, if they have a sleep test, you answer yes to that, they should be an answer there. Sleep test is negative for sleep apnea. Or stomach liver, if they say yes, stomach liver digestive problems, there should be GERD or reflux, or ascites, or let's say indigestion, periodic indigestion, written in there. Something it should approximately match those bubbles. Now, specifically when you're commenting on these things, when they ask, you need to ask, is it current? Does the medication match this? We want to try to be complete with this. The driver must sign the page and the date there. The FMCSA is very stringent on the dates. They can't sign it and then come back 15 days later. That date of that signature must match the date that you're doing this exam. And that's going to come important later when you go to report the results of this exam. For Section 2, this is where you're documenting. If you're documenting anything in this health history. If they're perfectly happy and they have no for everything, then you could say driver health history reviewed, no conditions which may cause sedation or impairment in the operation of motor vehicle. I like to write that. You're also documenting if these conditions are resolved. This is how this health history review shows that you know this, that you're familiar with this driver's health histories and you've reviewed them and you know that it won't give them issues when they're driving their rig. And so I always like to say no conditions found which may cause sedation or impairment in the operation of a motor vehicle. Of course, don't write this if there's a medical condition that's disqualifying or prevents the driver from being certified. So in other words, if they're putting down that they smoke, they take 300 tablets of THC tabs or THC gummies every day, don't write down no conditions found which causes sedation. You want to write down gummy history of taking gummies which is disqualifying. So just that documentation there, explain everything that you found, that you've reviewed it, and that you're aware of it. So each one of these conditions should ideally be documented down there. Now, blood pressure. Let's get into the vitals in the medical exam. Blood pressure value must be entered, right? If it's above 140/90, feel free to retest it. You want to need to test it a few times before you write it down on the form. Feel free to do that. But 140/90, if it's systolic on either one, if it's greater than 140/90 for systolic or the diastolic value, you're going to want to do a retest. And blood pressure needs to be below 140/90 for them to be passed for this exam. Your analysis must be done. If we have an A1C, please feel free to write down that value. If there's any protein, blood, or sugar in it, respectively, you want to document that. You can probably document that in the bottom of the physical exam down there that was noted, and what you're working up. That can be worked up further if there's no reason. If they have diabetes or if they're on diabetes medications that cause sugar spillage, that you can write down your physical examination as to explain that finding. But that that should be, urinalysis should be properly documented. Vision should also be documented. 20/40 is the minimum standard. Above that, it should be well, you guys are going to know this when you do the exam, but it should be at least one eye that has 20/40 or greater vision, and the horizontal field of vision should be sufficient as well. And then that the bubbles, yes, no, you want to appropriately fill those out as well. For the hearing, the test the patient with a forced whisper at 5 feet or greater. I usually like to go to 8 feet or 10 feet. If they have difficulty hearing, can only hear at the less distance, document it. To also check if they're wearing a hearing aid, it's not necessarily disqualifying. Well, it isn't disqualifying, but make sure you check the box there if they are using hearing aid. If they have a formal hearing test, you can enter that into for the 500, 1000, and 2000 hertz fields in there. So we said here, a formal hearing test. You can use that in lieu of the forced whisper results. If any of the values are below the required to pass the test, you need to document that in the bottom. And then you won't be able to pass them initially. You can do a termination pending, or you can just simply fail them for the test, whatever, depending how bad the values are, respectively. But you'll need to be above the criteria to pass them for it. When you perform your physical examination, feel free to write normal exam in the field below the bubbles. However, it better be an absolutely normal examination. There can't be any findings whatsoever, as an 18-year-old track athlete from high school needs to be a completely normal examination. If you check abnormal in any of the boxes, you have to write a comment about it. For example, fourth digit missing right hand, and whether or not that will impair driving. Fourth digit missing right hand. In this case, normal grip strength of the right hand. Ideally, you can document that with a goniometer and just kind of for grip strength, but needs to be addressed in the physical examination. Please be specific in documenting that. Now, I find it's helpful to document any unique findings on the exam. If they have scars, for example, normal exam, scar on right abdomen, exam otherwise normal. Documenting a tattoo. I love tattoos because, I don't love tattoos. I don't have any tattoos, but it's really nice to document the tattoos. For example, tattoo of butterfly on left upper arm. That will serve that. Did you really see this patient? Yes, I really saw the patient. I did an examination on them. This is what I found. It's going to definitively place you performing that examination. It should be sufficient detail to demonstrate that a driver is capable of driving with no problems. If there's any deficits, please indicate those on the in the field. Now, I talked about the MCSA 5872, which was the medication form, which was the diabetes form. So if someone has diabetes, they can get there. They don't have to get a waiver for it. Their treating provider needs to fill out the MCSA 5872. Your MCA 5895, we talked about this earlier with the medications. If a driver is on a medication that may cause sedation, have them fill this out, both these forms, have them fill them out ahead of time before they come to see you to make your life easier. For any medications that they're taking, it can't hurt. It can't hurt. The FMCSA is looking for extra documentation, and they've been pushing for more involvement of these additional forms to document clearance during the exams. For the final certification page, it's going to bring together the examination, the health history. Your DOT training is going to cover absolute disqualifiers and whether or not to qualify or disqualify the drivers. If they have a medical condition, that's going to prevent them from driving, please check the top bubble. Just like seizures, please check the top bubble. Does not meet standards, and then write seizures behind it or something like that. If it's a 2-year, if they have absolutely normal exam, blood pressure, and no medical issues whatsoever, feel free to check the 2-year certificate, meets certificate standards in 49 CFR 391.41 qualifies for 2-year certificate. Please feel free to check that box. If they have high blood pressure, do not give them more than a 1-year bubble. Meet standards, but periodic monitoring required, specified reason. Blood pressure, you can have blood sugar in there too. 1-year bubble for that. If you give less than 2-year certification, please write the reason, high blood pressure, and check the time frame that you're qualifying them for. If they wear a hearing aid or corrective lenses, you have to check the box as well. You might sound counterintuitive or ridiculous, but I've seen a fair number of forms that did not have that checked. If they have an exemption, you have to check the boxes. In order to check the boxes is accordingly, be detail oriented. If you need more information to make a determination, like, I'm curious about this medical condition, you can give them that check the determination pending box and give them a date to come back and see you, like if you need a note from their doctor explaining something, or you want them to go and see an optometrist or ophthalmologist, you can have them return for the 45 days or less. And then you can check the medical report amended, the reason, vision, in that case it would be vision, vision assessment, and you can put the signature on the date. So fill out the lower fields. When it finally was finished with everything, put your signature in there, name, address. I should say that in the red box below, that's a medical examiner certificate. That is not the date of your certificate to perform these exams. Not that right, medical examiner certificate expiration date, that's when this page will expire. So it's going to be 2 years or less from the date of the exam. And this expiration date, this date, should match the if you've done a determination pending, it should match that. If you've given them a 2-year card or 1-year card, this should match the date that you've done this examination. So example, if you did an examination on June 1st, 2025, and you gave a driver a 1-year card, the date of the exam in the red box would be 6/1/2025, and 6/1/2026. It would not be 6/1/2025. So in the little red card, medical examiner certification expiration date, if you're giving them a 1-year, 2-year certificate, the date that you write in that box, because I've been there and done that, is going to be reflective of the date that your examination is going to expire, 1 year, 2 year from the date of the exam. For electronic submission, when you go onto the FMCSA website, medical examiner website, you're going to be allowed to put in each of your examinations like this. The URLs on the bottom. The DMV, South Carolina DMV, is going to have the certification is going to automatically be transmitted by the FMCSA when you fill this out. This is going to electronically go to the South Carolina DMV with saying that the driver's license, that you've approved them for another year to drive, or a year or two to drive commercial vehicles. They were basically refill the information from the medical examiner's certificate. Now you have 24 hours from when you do the exam to when this can be reported on the website. Don't delay or let it slide too long. The FMCSA has specifically stated you have to fill this when you finish the exam, and you give the person you certify a person in the clinic. You have within 24 hours. This should be done by midnight of the next day, indicating that you've completed this. This needs to be filled out within 24 hours of performing the exam. So I've warned you. If they audit this and they find that you're too late, they're not going to be happy about it. So within 24 hours, please fill this out. And again, this is electronically going to the South Carolina DMV wants this. You can't just give them paper anymore to go to the DMV. They'll need that paper certificate so they can put it in their wallet when they're driving. But the South Carolina DMV will only allow this electronic submission for each one of the drivers. So for documentation, basically it's started to audit medical examiners, which means you, and it's going to, usually we get these for about 10-year periods, and the closer you get to the renewal time period, they're going to start auditing you. They're going to request you doing these, they're going to ask you for past exams that you've done. And this form right here, this MCSA 5875, this paperwork is the only valid paperwork for doing these exams. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll document it in Epic and basically document all these fields in Epic, it's not valid. You need to send this in. This is your official documentation of each exam, medical exam that you do. You will need a copy of this for each of the exams that you do. And Dr. Hartenbaum, she's the guru of all these DOT exams, one of the developers of the exam. She confirmed it as of AOHC in 2026. So a couple key points here. You can read through it. Be specific. Make sure everything's filled out. Don't leave out any boxes or any bubbles. And it's all going to be electronically transmitted to the DMV. The blood pressure is 140/90. Vision must be better than 20/40. And a forced whisper must be greater than 5 feet. So, and focus on the yes and no. Give me a call if you have any complex cases. Happy to talk anytime. Dr. Grobe, 843-364-2527. Please email me the message DOT-done26 to confirm when you finished this module. Thank you very much, and have a great day.